Hello everyone and welcome to No Excuses for VTWProductions.com and on YouTube with your hosts Fenurian.
And Volacella, who's currently fighting a Diablos.
Yes,
We don't
with
actually know where Ari is at the moment.
yeah, which is it's not the first time, but usually when he disappears like this, he comes back with some very interesting story.
Or sometimes alarming.
It's just sometimes very alarming. Yes. So we shall see. Presumably something has caught fire again. Ugh. So how goes that Diablos?
It's rampaging around. I'm fighting him on the least favourable terrain. I've broken both of his horns. Can't seem to get his tail off, and he's going underground again.
Oh dear.
My goodness.
So yeah, Diablos, everyone. That's what he does,
He's exceptionally ugly and exceptionally angry.
and just very, very impolite.
Yes, he's got a bad temper.
So give us some shtick.
Right, if you would like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com or by following us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw. Or alternatively, you can join us in our Discord chat at any time and chat with us during the week or during the show. And the easiest way to get to that is to go to vtwproductions.com and click on the No Excuses logo on any of our recent show posts. You should be able to get a link directly to our Discord channel.
Yes, indeed. So
In there, you can also find links to our YouTube channel, which is where we stream live.
yes. So certainly do that. So this week on the stream, I'm playing a bit of Stellaris, which received its 2.0 patch this week in relation to the, I believe it's the Armageddon DLC, which kind of, from what I can tell, restructured almost the entire game. So this is probably going to be a big learning experience for me, and everything's going to go horribly wrong. So I'm going to roll up a race of devouring snails, because, you know, snails.
That's the Space 4X, right?
It is. It's one of many.
Yeah. I was just making sure I was thinking of the right one.
Yeah.
And not mixing it up with Starbound or something like that.
No. So, yeah, we'll see how this goes, because, yeah, they've changed everything. Or just about, anyway. Some of which for better, and some of which for worse. Maybe. Oh, dear. So, I guess we'll just dive straight into our week, shall we? Let me see what to talk about for my week. It's been another chaotic week, I guess. The last event for Fate Grand Order wrapped up, the Garden of Sinners. I failed to get anything of real note out of it.
Well, you probably got a pile of EXP and stuff.
That I did. I managed to boost up some of my heroes up to level 50. But, yeah, there's a new Flash event going on at the moment, which introduces a few new heroes. I think one of which is a limited time hero. The other two are going into the story mode pool.
Yes. The ruler from Fate Apocrypha, whose name I won't bother to say because it's sort of a spoiler.
Yeah.
He's one of the featured servants, and the other featured servant is one of the riders from Apocrypha, being Astolfo.
She is very Astolfo, yes.
It's dude.
It is also a dude, yes. He's very off-putting.
Currently the most famous trap character in anime, I would say.
Yes. Oh dear.
I hope you didn't like your tail, Diablos.
You cut his butt off.
I mean, he's exceptionally annoyed at me.
He is indeed quite miffed.
Yeah, that event did close up, and since I was participating, I will speak regarding the matter here as well. But yeah, I managed to get most of the stuff that I thought that there was a chance of me getting, plus a little bit. So I expected that I had the capacity to get Shiki. I did not know how many of them I would manage to get. Oh, I just got that over. Oh my goodness, let me out from the corner. No, it fainted. That's
Nah, that's once Diablos gets you in the corner, that's it.
Yeah, but yeah, I did not know how many of them I'd be able to get because the my headphone cord is now tied up in my chair. Great. I did not know how many I'd be able to get because the first one was relatively accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other ones basically got increasingly harder with the final one ending up being um, 90 quests complete required,
Yeah.
which basically means you need to be able to clear most of the thing. And like, you know, my very best servants are like level 50, and the highest quests that you needed were like recommended level 80.
Yes.
So it was not easy. I had some extreme nail biter battles, like that would come down to a single move, and whoever's move worked the way they intended, mine or the enemies, would decide the winner, sort of thing. So yeah, it was fun and it was challenging for me. Probably for experienced players who've got a good stable of servants, it would not be nearly as entertaining. It mostly be grindy, but yeah, it was quite the challenge. But in the end, I got all of Shaki's Ascension items. I got Shaki's Noble Phantasm to level 5, and I cleaned out every single item in the shop, Nevin shop. So, yeah, I basically did as well as I could expect to from that. There were plenty of missions that I couldn't do at the very top of
Mm-hmm.
the apartment building because they're just, they're beyond my reach. But, yeah, we've got Serithus in the chat wanting the YouTube channel.
Okay.
So you should link that for him. But
Yep.
but yeah, so I got as much and more than I thought I would, and I'm pretty satisfied with how it went for me overall. It gets increasingly silly as the event goes on, but
Mm.
the interesting thing is if you can take the event to sort of like the sort of the normal mode conclusion, with like I did without clearing everything, you actually meet the antagonist for the next event, next major event, a London event. He's the
Yes.
one who's in control of the apartment building. He's working nominally at someone else's behest, but serving his own agenda at that point. Um, but yeah, um, yeah. So it was an enjoyable event. I got made out like a bandit. Got
Mm-hmm.
piles of stuff. Got a mountain of mana prisms. So yeah, good event. Next one coming up, I won't be able to participate in because I'm not that far. So I'm going to, return to my normal pattern of trying to get the things I need to upgrade my dudes and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So, yeah. I wasn't quite so lucky. Well, lucky I didn't grind quite so much. I just didn't really draw, well, the time to do it, I suppose. But, yeah, I got a few things. Got a few heroes leveled up. Hit a roadblock with most of them because they need quest items to ascend further. But yeah, the next event in London is not for beginners, unlike Garden of Sinners was.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I suppose that the is so aimed at being accessible to the entire spectrum of players.
Mm-hmm.
The they want to include also events for people who are much higher in the food chain and can would have walked over a lot of the challenges in the Garden of Sinners event. So that's what the London event that's coming up, featuring the Count of Monte Cristo, is going to be. You'll be the first Avenger added to the servant pool in North America.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll be interested to see if there's any way to me to get in there, but I doubt it. There's a lot of ground to cover between where I am in the story and London. So yeah, they are having a promotion though, and it's already live where all of the story quests are halved in AP cost, so you can progress quite quickly. So I've started Septum, just barely.
Nice, nice.
And I'll be proceeding through there. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I did take a poke at France, and everything there is just ludicrously easy now.
Yeah, it was a little bit like bullying toward the end.
Yeah, yeah. What else did I play? I played some Monster Hunter. I got myself up into high rank quests finally.
I still
Now,
haven't.
yeah,
Getting my butt kicked.
you're still dealing with Rathalos and Diablos, I believe.
I got Rathalos down.
Oh, good, you got him.
I captured him. I didn't fight him all the way to death.
Close enough.
I had it within me, but the Rathalos one, like, I'm having more trouble with Diablos now. But I've walked over Diablos in the past. Like, I know I can kill him because I've killed him with ease in the past. We were just encountering them on expeditions. At the moment, I'm dying over and over again, but I think that might be because I've got the sound off to do the show. So I can't tell where he's about to go underground. I can't tell where he is positionally without looking. So yeah, I might be having a bit more trouble at the moment. But Rathalos was rough. There is no safe place to stand adjacent to a Rathalos.
Nope.
Every part of him is pointy or poisonous or on fire.
Yep.
Or all three at once.
Series mascot, ho! So, yeah, you beat those two. You end up taking on Zora Magdaros again, which was, frankly, a rather easy fight. I'm not going to go as far as saying it's bad the first time you do it. You do repeat it again later, though. It just randomly pops up and rotates out.
He's basically a mountain. I mean,
yeah, he's kind of a mountain, mountain snail dragon thing. So you basically whack on his shell nodules, his lava cores, until he gets to the barrier, in which case you go over there, you fire the Dragonator occasionally, and by occasionally I mean once, and then just shoot him in cannons until he falls over. And by falls over, he leaves. You don't actually kill it.
I always found the Dragonator to be quite an amusing name.
What it is a stonking great spear on a piston, which is two of them, yes, and it spins.
Yeah. It's
So,
basically a giant pointy drill.
yes, and it will just
A pair of giant pointy drills.
it will just bore a hole straight through anything. But after that, you go into your high rank quests, which this starts off easy. It just gives you a whole bunch of optional ones. You do, high rank Pookie Pookie, which is not a whole lot of different to regular Pookie Pookie. It just got more health. And Pookie Pookie's pretty easy as long as you don't get farted on. You're right.
Yeah, like I for the very first time that I tried using a weapon that wasn't the bow, I got the great sword out and I basically bull rushed Pookie Pookie and killed him outright. So Pookie Pookie's not that tough.
No, Pookie Pookie's easy.
I would say it was a lot easier with a melee weapon than it was with the bow, because I could just run up to him and hack his tail off before it could cause trouble.
Yes. So once you've done that first one, then you get to meet everybody's favourite new troll, Beetlejuice. So I was mildly disappointed that Devil Joe wasn't in the original game, because he used to be the big troll. You'd be on a high rank quest and he would just show up, roar, and then laser beam you. Or he'd stomp on you, or bite, or whatever. He'd come up and he would just ruin your day.
Because that's what he does.
The difference between Devil Joe and Beetlejuice is Beetlejuice, firstly, he can fly, whereas Devil Joe can't. And secondly is Beetlejuice does not necessarily announce his arrival until it's too late. So when Devil Joe...
I've actually seen a video online of somebody going for the mount on a monster, and then when the mounting animation ends, he's actually riding Beetlejuice around.
Yes. Beetlejuice just turns up. That's all he does.
Like he goes for the leap and gets intercepted by Beetlejuice, and Beetlejuice gets mounted instead.
Yeah. His name's not really Beetlejuice, it's Betelgeuse or something like that. But, yeah, everyone just calls him Beetlejuice because he shows up when you don't want him. But usually, depending on what you're fighting and what kind of mood Beetlejuice is in, your first notice will be a scale that glows orange, that drops out of the sky and lands next to you. If you have that happen when you're first starting out on high rank, you have about 1 second to dodge roll. Otherwise, you're dead. That's about all the warning he gives you. Yes. And yeah, you can hit him in the face with poo bombs and he'll go away, but he'll be back within maybe 2 minutes.
He is not. He's not interested in doing what.
No, he is not. And he doesn't care if he's attacking you or what you're hunting. He's just in there to ruin everybody's day.
He's a hungry guy.
He's a hungry guy. He's a big, flying, ugly thing dragon.
Listen to Kizu.
No, Kezus are just creepy.
They're not in this game at all, though, right?
No, there are no Kezus in this game yet.
I love with that.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
They're going to add Kizus in an expansion.
Hard to say. I'd say yes. Kezu's probably one that will show up. Oh dear. I'm just trying to figure out what they've changed with Stellaris here, and now it turns out you can't use colony ships to expand your boundaries. Huh. Okay. So yeah, anyway. Yeah, just still chipping away at high rank. I haven't moved on to the first major story event where because you've got to kind of run around, do these optional quests and find evidence of a unknown Rathian, which is probably, Pink Rathian or something like that. So
It's not unknown. Everybody knows about the Pink Rathian.
everyone knows Pink Rathian, except apparently the Research Society, because, yeah,
They're really bad at their job, I guess.
I guess. Or rather, they want you to go out and do it, and they're just going to sit around in town without their
I'm
names.
deeply annoyed at them right now. Because the monster which I have found the hardest to beat, generally speaking, has been Odogaron. Well, other than Anjanath, who's just like a perennial scourge to me, no matter how far I progress in the game.
Yeah.
Anjanath can still ruin my day. But the Odogaron was very, very hard for me to kill, and it's partly a function of the fact that the bow is a very unsuitable weapon to fight him with because he's so fast.
Yeah.
But I finally managed to kill him today, and I captured him because that's usually what I do with a monster that I think is going to be exceptionally difficult, so that I can skip the final phase of combat. But the Research Society is the second I got back, the Research Society sent me out to capture one. Like, I'm like, dude, right there behind you on that platform, there's one for you to study. I spent a lot of time capturing it.
No, we don't want that one.
I want a different one.
I want it. Yes, that one is wrong.
It's gone stale.
Even though it's still alive and sleeping on the platform. No, it's stale. We don't want that one.
Snoring guy.
Oh no, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So Research Society, my opinion of them, not particularly high right now.
No, although I do really have to question game journalists again, because there's a bunch of articles flying around saying, "Oh, what does Monster Hunter say about conservation of species?"
What?
Do your research, people. If you did even basic research into the story, what little of it there is, that is the entire point of the Monster Hunters Guild.
To be fair, it is laughable.
It is.
Laughable.
It's just an excuse plot for the most part, but they have thought of all that. That is what the Monster Hunter Guild is for. Is to make sure monsters aren't overhunted.
That's not what I'm for.
No, you're there to.
I'm trying to hunt them. I'm trying to hunt them to extinction.
Yeah, you're there to do the killing. They're there to tell you what to kill and what you can't kill. Also, time loops, because reasons.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You only ever actually do one of those quests once. Everything else is just a time loop.
But to be fair, when have game journalists ever said anything sane?
I'll tell you when they do. Ugh.
So, I mean, it's in line with expectations in that sense.
Yeah. Oh boy, oh boy. What else did I really do this week? Not too much, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's been that sort of week for me as well, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's just been buckling down, continuing on with my dog course. I'm gonna hopefully submit my assessment, which is the assistant skill assessment, putting the dumbbell in the pedal bin thing, sometime this week. And once I do that, that's the hardest assessment done. So everything from there should be downhill.
It really does seem like this is not a very... the controls on this assessment are not very good, because if you just happen to have access to only an exceptionally dumb dog, it might make it disproportionately difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or let's say your dog is a rescuee who's got a bit of trauma, like you are really going to be setting yourself up for a bad time.
Yeah. They set some guidelines, like if you don't have a dog, do your research and either borrow somebody else's dog or adopt one, or whatever. But yeah, in this case I actually got lucky. My dog is dumb as well. She's not dumb as a post. She has absolutely no attention span, which makes her extremely difficult to work with. But my mother's dog is incredibly chill, so he just does whatever.
Yeah, but don't you want to do specific things, not whatever?
He'll do whatever you want him to do for a Scooby snack.
I see. So he's got specific goals in mind, and he knows how to.
Exactly. There is food. How do I get food? By doing this incredibly inane thing the human wants me to do is how. Woof woof. So yeah, that's been my week. Yay, academia, I guess. Yeah.
This is a novel sort of academia with which I am greatly unfamiliar.
Yes, the science of dog. How do you dog? All right.
I don't know how you dog.
I don't think my dogs know how to dog. One of them certainly doesn't. Anyway, how was your week, sir?
It was a bit rough. We got understaffed at work again because people apparently who set up the roster are not in sufficiently real-time communication with people who are actually doing the work. So there's some miscommunication which ended up with us having too few people to do the work, and we ended up playing catch up. Wasn't great. So yeah, I ended up spending a lot of my time just being too tired to do very much, which is happening with increasing frequency these days. I think that's just part of working, though. But,
yeah.
Yeah, because of that, I don't really have a great deal of talk about in that sense. I spent most of my free time either furiously trying to grind out the last bits and pieces of the Garden of Sinners event before it expired on me, or trying to hunt monsters with a minimum of success. I'm not nearly as well progressed through as even Fern, let alone Ari.
Ari's finished it. He's off farming,
Yeah.
ultra endgame stuff, and that's it.
I'm not really
Vol's
sure
a little
exactly
bit
how
low.
the game works, but it seems like there's an awful lot to do.
Yeah, hang on. Let me see if I can just turn Vol up while you talk.
Yeah, I need to move the microphone or something, like it's in a pretty...
Oh, there we go.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm at the point where I've got to do a formal kill on Diablos and Rathalos, and Rathalos I've brought down. Diablos is giving me difficulty only because I don't have the sound on, I think. But yeah, I don't know how far away I am from being caught up, or how much I've got to do. I have a tendency to get distracted and start farming at the drop of a hat.
Mm-hmm.
Like something like once I either kill this Diablos or lose my temper with it, I'll probably go back to farming Legiana, not because I need anything from Legiana, but because I know how to kill Legiana. I'm not fast at killing things like Ari and other people who want to be tier hardcores at this game tend to do things like keeping track of their kill times and that, but it still takes me like 11 to 14 minutes to kill Legiana. I'm not that great at it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm fighting Diablos in the canyon again. That's not good.
No, don't do that. That's deadly. That is.
But yeah, I'm still having a good time with it. It's just that like the way that I can tell that I'm having is that monsters do things that are complete bull all the time, and it doesn't make me stop playing. Like, it doesn't make me give up. which is what normally happens when I feel like a game is unduly mistreating me. It's
Yes.
very, very strange. I just saw the Diablos burrow through the edge of a cliff.
Oh dear. Oh
I
yes,
could
he does
see
that.
him, I could see him swimming vertically through the ground.
What?
It was very cool to watch.
He's not supposed to do that outside of his nest. That's probably why you got the wacky animations. Oh dear.
But yeah, I'm still having a good time with it, and I think that I'm very likely just going to keep pushing through with this game, and I'll probably stick for quite a long time because it's got everything that I want. It's in the sense that it's bottomless and doesn't have a subscription fee. Oh boy, I'm about to get eaten. So yeah, I really wish I had more to talk about. The novelty for this week, I suppose, for me, was I watched the Fate Extra anime.
Ah yes.
Last Encore. It is quite good. It is quite good. It is quite dark. Fate Extra already starts off pretty dark, but this is set in a rather weird alternate dimension to the previous one. There's a lot of sort of hints that there is a cycle being repeated, particularly early on in Fate Extra, because the Mooncell Grail War is something that the Mooncell does, and it doesn't just do it once. I'm not really sure. It's been a long time since I played it, and I'm not really sure on a lot of the fine-grained detail about what's going on. But the main character, and this is not really a spoiler since it's revealed very early on, does not seem to be a normal master. Well, I mean, in Fate Extra, he's not a normal master, but you see, even more abnormal than before. Like, if I had to guess based on what I've seen at this stage of the story, I would say that he's actually an anomaly in the system rather than the conventional Hakuno protagonist of the franchise, and has actually become a sort of an Avenger demi-servant of some kind.
Okay.
Because he appears to be way more unstable than Hakuno normally is. Because Hakuno's typically I would say a silent protagonist, except that he's not really silent because he says stuff in text, but it's very rarely is it pointed out that he's actually saying anything. And when he does say things, it's usually reported speech.
Mm.
If you know what I mean. I mean, you've played some of Fate's Extella, you probably know what I mean.
Yep.
But he doesn't have outright lines the way you conventionally see from a protagonist. But yeah, it's he's clearly not stable, and there's a very heavy implication that he's basically had enough of this whole Grail War malarkey before he even started, and he's got sort of partial memories of having basically been antagonized by being included in these events repeatedly, and doesn't really want to be there. But yeah, so the story's told from quite a dark perspective because Extra opens up dark, but rather than opening onto a formal in-progress Grail War the way the story conventionally does, it opens into a Mooncell Grail War that has already, before the protagonist becomes involved, because it's implied that he ended up getting put in suspended animation along with his servant for longer than you're supposed to when you're getting sort of imported to the Grail War proper. By the time he arrives, everything has already completely gone off the rails because somebody's interfering with it up the top.
Right.
So it's a very different sort of scenario to the typical Grail War. The first tier that that the protagonist ends up in is basically like the war is over. Nobody who is left there even wants to participate in the war to begin with. And it became, based on what I've seen of that arc, which I think I've seen that arc through to its completion now, is basically the one and only time I have ever seen anything resembling a sympathetic treatment of Shinji Mato.
This does not compute. Shinji is horrible.
So sympathy is the last thing that this guy deserves.
Yeah.
So the idea of a sympathetic portrayal of him is just kind of strange all told. But yeah, they do it. They do that, and it's not really because he's a better person or anything. But it seems like he's a Shinji who he's been put out to seed for so long due to the fact that this is a war which is ongoing and didn't end when it was supposed to, that kind of thing, that it seems like he's basically at some point come to terms with the fact that he's a douchebag, and rather than wallowing in it, he sort of regrets that he didn't manage to make something better of himself.
He did some really horrible things in just about
In the
every
main
continuity.
in the main continuity, like he does a few. He does an awful lot of horrible things. In the extra continuity, he does a few grievously horrible things. But there is also in the conventional Fate extra continuity, it is heavily implied that he only looks like a teenager and he's actually like a child prodigy pro gamer, who's basically his worst crime is to think everything is a game and be a spoiled brat.
Mm.
So they sort of try and make you feel a bit stink for killing him in that scenario, but but yeah, it's a different story in this one. I'm very interested to see how it goes. It's certainly it's certainly intrigued me, and it's not going to surpass Zero or anything, I doubt, but it's got all of the makings of a really interesting Nasuverse story, and I'm interested in progressing more in Grand Order actually to see if there's any overlap, because Fate Extella was used as a vehicle to reveal an awful lot of additional information about the mechanics of the Nasuverse in general, and apparently Grand Order in the late stages is sort of like an order of magnitude more than that in terms of new data. So the way the understanding of Nasuverse concepts is in Japan has sort of exceeded what we have access to in the West.
Okay.
Unless you play like the Japanese Grand Order. So I'm interested to see if there are new concepts that are going to be blended in that we haven't seen before, and so on and so forth. Now, as far as the anime goes, the anime is not like, it's not made with like top ticket animation necessarily, but it's very high quality nonetheless. It's not in that top UFO table bracket. It's just close to it.
UFO table's off
like,
busy making a cooking anime at the moment.
Yeah, it's I didn't bring any bombs.
You should probably do that. Anyway.
But yeah, at any rate, the I confronted the Diablos and I realised I didn't have anything to blow it up with. Now I'm going to have to fight it on foot. But the production quality is very, very good. There's tons of like callbacks and cameos of various sorts. Like the first sort of proper scrap between servants you see, not counting the sort of the pseudo fight between a sort of a false Emir and Nero at the very start. Like you get to see a bunch of like Grand Order servants. So you get to see Darius, you get to see Fergus, and I can't remember who the other one was offhand. But yeah, so you get, you know, your Nasuverse fan service.
Gotta have it.
The thing that is most notable is it's being directed by Akiyuki Shimbo, who has an extraordinarily distinctive style that can be recognized anywhere. The thing that Ari likes to refer to that is most distinctive in some people's mind, I think the most distinctive thing about him is his visual direction and the sort of color palettes that he uses. I'm gonna die, but the thing that Ari likes to talk about is the shaft neck tilt. The shaft neck tilt is so called because it's done by Studio Shaft, but it's basically this bizarre propensity that he has for making characters talk over their shoulders.
Yeah, but when a character talks over their shoulder, they turn their head. They don't do that.
Yeah, Akiyuki Shinbo just tends to like to have them crook their neck over backwards.
Yeah.
Which is highly unnatural looking and it makes them look like a contortionist.
I don't know why he does it, because just...
Except oftentimes he does it for no reason whatsoever. The first time I saw a huge amount of this in Bakemonogatari, where it's used excessively. But the the thing that I always note about his work, though, is that he uses sort of very psychedelic, almost surreal sorts of color palettes and patterns in the background and that sort of thing. Like, if he could repaint the world, he would paint it in Stan the Salesman's shirt, like just sort of lurid patterns that move strangely and generally make you feel unsettled. And like the way he will draw a background will be more about setting the emotional tone of the background than depicting what is actually in the background. That's the way he usually does these things.
Yeah, I suppose he's got a lot of agency with the moon cell, seeing as though it's a virtual environment.
Yeah, and he uses that to the fullest because he doesn't need to have rational looking environments. In Bakemonogatari, he was presented with a conventional sort of urban area, and he made that very, very strange, despite the fact that it was, you know, a mundane setting in some sense. Yeah, it was. It's really interestingly presented, and it lends a lot additional sort of like creeping malice to the setting, because, as I say, he communicates the mood more than he communicates the surroundings. You can sort of sense the meanness of the surroundings, like that this is not a hospitable place. This is a place which is intended to have people kill each other in it, despite the fact that for all surface appearances it's just a school at the start, for instance, because that's how the game launches off. The initial stages of the Holy Grail War, a simulated school, but the scenario that is presented is one where, yeah, it's definitely a school, but this school has all of the additional sort of menace draped all over it due to this color palette choices and the presentation and whatnot. So there are a lot of like arbitrarily long corridors for people to run down and so on and so forth. And the guy who runs the PA system at the school is Kotomine.
Him again.
So there's basically no way that it's going to end well.
No, whenever Kotomino shows up, things are going to go horrible.
Yeah, well, it's down. It only took me 25 minutes. And it was my smallest Diablos.
Oh dear.
But yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting series, and it was written according to Nasu. I think it was Nasu, the director or screenplay writer. I can't remember. At any rate, I read online that it was written to be accessible both to people who don't know anything about Fate Extra and people who are very familiar with it. But the intention was to make you say WTF no matter which you were.
Fair enough.
So,
mission accomplished on that front.
Pretty much, yeah. So I'm no longer in a position to determine whether or not it is accessible to someone with no knowledge of Type Moon whatsoever. But the moon cell, in principle, is removed enough from the conventional Fuyuki Grail War that that's the sort of start of the series, that it might not matter if you don't know much about it. There's a lot of sort of stuff that has been pumped in there specifically for fans of the franchise, but you don't need to be familiar with Fate Extra. Not like in Fate Extella, where a lot of things don't make sense unless you've played both Fate Extra and Extra CCC. In Extra CCC, apparently nothing makes sense without Fate Extra. But in this case, you don't really need any of that stuff. You can probably get more out of it if you did, but you don't need it. But furthermore, if you do know it very well, a lot of things are going to turn out to be quote-unquote wrong, because this continuity is functioning in a different way.
It's broken.
But yeah, it starts out pretty brutal. It doesn't stop being brutal. Nero is, as ever, a delight. Like she sort of, rather than walking or jumping or whatever, she flourishes everywhere. Like, everything is done in a flamboyant way. Like, her walking down the street has an awful lot more movement than you know, a normal person walking down the street.
Compare Arturia walking down the street.
Big swinging of arms, like everything. Like, I guess that what you could say is that she enjoys everything. So
Yeah, which is nice because yeah, Fate Zero and Fate Stay Night, you've got Arturia, and Arturia is just serious, no nonsense most of the time. She doesn't flounce or flourish or do anything that isn't really necessary.
Yeah. Nero, on the other hand, consistently flounces at everyone. So yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was a good watch. I enjoyed it. I'm going to continue watching it. I have no idea where you can watch it. I think it's Netflix.
Netflix. It could be worse, I suppose. It could be Amazon.
I don't know how to use Netflix, so I'm just downloading it. But
yep.
Yeah.
But you don't tell people that.
Well, I would watch it on Netflix if I,
had Netflix.
If I didn't, well, I mean, I don't have Netflix for starters, and I also don't particularly want to support Netflix because they're basically trying to turn their service into a propaganda engine. Like they keep publishing propaganda pieces for some reason. I don't know why they think that it's their business model.
Yeah, let me have a look. Netflix. That's the live action Full Metal Alchemist. That could be potentially really cool, but it's most likely going to be awful. Because, live action anime adaptation.
There are lots of things that have potential but turn out awful.
Yeah.
Most things that turn out awful had potential but turned out awful.
Yeah.
But,
let me see. Fate. Because, Netflix seems to have a domination over the Fate franchise at the moment. Let me see. Fate Apocrypha, Fate Stay Night, Unlimited Blade Works, and that's it. Although they could be doing the usual Netflix thing and actually waiting for the end of the run before they publish and just dump it all on in one go.
It could be, but as I said, I think it's Netflix. I'm not sure that it's Netflix. There's a lot I don't know about this particular. Yeah, it's. And, I'm enjoying it, but of course I'm enjoying it. But
yeah, it's Fate.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's anything else new that I tried watching this week. I've mainly been playing catch up. So I'm often in a position where I get home, I flop down in front of the computer, I talk to people on Discord a bit, I eat something, and I go to sleep. Because
this is welcome to adult.
I don't like it. It's
no.
No wonder so many people want to be communists because they think that they're going to get to loaf around or does the work.
Nope.
But yeah, what actually happens if you're communist is you get sent to a gulag and you die in the snow. if you don't starve to death before getting sent to the gulag.
Oh dear.
So yeah, but, I mean that's what history says happens.
Yep.
But,
so I suppose there's one more thing we can quickly touch on before we go to a break, and that is the release of Them's Fightin' Herds. Which yes, it turns out I am dreadful at.
Okay, let's just sort of get this out here. Are there any fights exceptionally good at?
No, not really. No,
Does this actually differ substantially?
Not really. I'm pretty dreadful at fighting games at the best of times, but I just cannot get Fighting Herds to flow the way I want it to. Maybe it's just because the way the button inputs are. Like for the most part, there's no quarter circle inputs or anything like that. You use those for your specials, and that seems to be about it.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of it's push forward and press attack, or pull back, press attack, or tap forward, and things like that. But yeah, this is the reskinned Fighting is Magic game, but there's 6 characters in there, and you can completely tell which one was which pony. It's not hard.
Well, I think that they probably want that to be the case.
Yeah. Like, they took the themes that they had built up for the previous, and instead of putting them to waste, they've just repurposed them, changed the sprites, and made new characters. Done. New game.
Yeah.
So, people seem to be enjoying it.
Seems like... I feel like the art is such a... Because they're done by the same character design, it's such a dead ringer for the style used within the latest My Little Pony installments that I'm a little bit concerned that they'll find a way to get hit by a C&D again somehow. I know
I,
that it would be unreasonable, but Hasbro are unreasonable.
they are, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try it. But at this point, they've got no grounds.
It's not going to stick. I'm not trying.
Yeah.
I think it would stick, but I feel like it's such a dead ringer for the style that they might, take a punt on it if they don't think it'll cost them too much.
Yeah.
But, they might steer clear of it since they've already, harassed them in the past. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very nice looking though. Like I think that they've transitioned well, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And the alternates that they have picked for their characters look quite nice.
They certainly fit their personalities. So you can easily tell who's who. Like Fluttershy is now a sheep, and instead of using woodland animals, she just uses various dogs. Applejack is now a cow, but other than that, is exactly the same. Things like that. Yeah, even though Twilight is still a unicorn, but now she's just edgy.
Yeah, she looks like an exceptionally unhappy unicorn.
Yeah. But yeah, there's all these nice little touches. Each character in there feels unique and plays differently, which is really nice. But yeah, I'm just dreadful at it. I haven't even stepped foot into the multiplayer yet. I tried arcade, and I found out that this game actually trolls you by setting the default difficulty to competent. I am not competent at this game. No.
Maybe there are people who don't feel that that's pushing things exceptionally far.
No. So, yeah, the default is competent, which is medium hard, I believe. So if you're fresh-faced and step straight into the arcade mode, you're going to get destroyed. Completely and utterly destroyed. So,
incidentally, did you see they've got collaboration?
I did.
Things going on.
Yeah, a lot of the alternate color schemes in there are collaborations or references and things like that. Some of which are really, really good, and others are, let's face it, hideous.
Well, the lobby skins are explicitly designed to look like things from other properties. Like it looks like they have got a legit collaboration going with both Guilty Gear and BlazBlue, as well as Skullgirls, of course.
That they do.
To have their skins available as cosmetics in the lobby.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
it's and I'm surprised that they managed to do it. Like they've attracted that much attention that they were able to get permission to do this. I mean,
oh no!
This still works, I guess.
Oh no! His pony character shows up in BlazBlue Cross. Please don't. Just please don't.
I don't think that would happen.
No.
Maybe if it really, really, really took off, but I doubt that it would.
Yeah.
It would just be there's too much conceptual ground to cover, I think.
Yeah. Why is this horse in here? Except none of them are actually horses. Yet.
Yeah, I think I thought that was sort of a little bit strange in a way. Like it's based on a pony game, but there are actually no ponies in it. I guess this is their way of sort of evading the C&D.
Yeah, they got unicorn, then they got a dragon, but that's it. So, So yeah, that's that. It's good. It's still in early access, and there's a lot of balancing and tweaking to do on it yet. But it's good. It's functional. I haven't tried the net code, but Sleepbringer says it's quite good. And he's been playing nothing else for the last week, so I'll take his word for it.
I'm never sure if his enthusiasm for a product means that it's good or not.
In this case, it does. So yeah, pony fans, you've got your fighting game.
Without any ponies.
Without any ponies. Just an edgy unicorn. And a reindeer. Which, for some reason, the loading screen icon is the reindeer doing a butt dance. I don't know why. She's just waving her butt.
What?
Butt dances are apparently important.
See?
That reindeer butt dance. Let's take a break on that note.
I don't see.
No.
I don't understand.
Oops. Alright. So, let us break there. We will play a bit of music and we'll be back in a few minutes. And we're back with more No Excuses.
But still no Ari.
It's still no Ari, no. So, I've been attacked by pirates. Yeah. I'm still learning what they've rearranged on this game, and it seems to be everything. So I don't know what I'm doing. This is a brand new game now. So, we have an email. Oh,
Yes, we have an email from our good buddy Cyrus. He
Yes.
writes, Dear No Excuses. So, I have this growing dislike for bandwagoning in games. You know, how everything was World War II, then modern, then sci-fi, but also everything was MOBAs, then 3-bar filling open world survival crafting, strictly in early access, then hero shooters, then battle royale. I can hardly wait what's going to be the 2019 thing that makes all but 2 of the Flavor of the Year games work, while a dozen other studios crash with their WoW killers.
Oh, we already know
Remember
that.
all those
It's
WoW
Destiny.
killers? I remember.
I remember. Incidentally, Rift is still going, and it is still dreadful.
Yeah, and it's still popular too. Like, the thing is that a lot of these WoW, quote unquote WoW killers that quote crashed unquote, neither of those things were true.
Yeah.
Yes, they were not WoW killers.
Nah.
No, they didn't actually crash. That's one of the odd things about these things, is that when that was quote important unquote news, when there was something coming out as a WoW killer, for it to fail to make WoW stop existing was the measure of whether or not it had crashed.
Yep.
Like, the reality is that if you secure an ongoing subscription paying player base of 300,000 people, you are a roaring success.
Yes.
300,000 is not 12 million.
Nope.
It does not matter. It was almost always... No, I'd say it always was journalists saying whether something was a WoW killer or not.
The only one that actually did say it was a WoW killer out of the box was Rift.
Yeah, but Rift was always a bit weird.
And it's still bad. It is awful.
I don't like it. Like, I tried to play it once and I frankly didn't understand it. It was like vanilla WoW, only worse.
Yeah.
Because it was like, in addition to... Well, the reason why vanilla WoW worked, despite being rather janky, was because it was rather simple.
Mm-hmm.
Rift is like that, but with no simplicity.
Yes.
So it's janky, plus there's a huge layer of complexity slathered all over the janky, so you don't even know quite what you...
Yeah, it's got that whole custom class system, so not only is everything a little bit janky, and there's a lot of redundancy in your class, but everything is kind of up in the air in terms of balance.
But yeah, as far as the ones that did crash, the studios that did crash, what I found over the course of following these things at great length was that you could usually trace the quote crash unquote to a particular person or persons in the development team. Not aspirations or game systems by themselves, but people that forced certain things through. Does anybody remember EA Louse?
No, but that's possibly because I scrubbed it from my memory.
Now, EA Louse was a whistleblower who was working for, amongst other things, the EA studio which was behind Warhammer Online.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with Warhammer Online was, aside from sort of like approaching Konami levels poor morale in the development team, which was not helped by anybody involved in running it, they had a handful of sort of ideas men, producers and creative directors up the top who basically wrote checks with their mouths constantly and left it to somebody else to cash them.
Oh yes, that old chestnut.
Basically, and they had very little idea what was useful or practical, and a lot of ideas about what they wanted. Mm-hmm. So they ended up with a situation where it was literally impossible for the actual programming and development teams to meet the requirements of their bosses, who would heap ever-increasing requirements. So it was not to do with... They didn't die because they were bandwagon. They didn't die because they were trying to be WoW killers. They died because their management was toxic and basically poisoned the game below it.
Yeah.
Like, they did not know what goals to set, so they set goals more or less randomly, and that sort of thing can't sustain a project. Like, a lot of these things died because they were, 1.5 notches more realistic than Star Citizen came right down to it.
Anything is more realistic than Star Citizen at this point. But
So yeah.
yeah, so that's a tangent. But we've seen it happen with WoW killers. At the moment, we've just had all the hero shooter bandwagon dying off, and you've just got all those battle cattle, as I ended up calling them at one point, because everything was battle something.
Yeah,
they're all dying out.
That the death knell of that sort of like we detected it coming ahead of time in a sense on account of the cancellations that started to happen before even getting to that point where it was a problem to release it and then have it be unsuccessful. Like we saw that Battle Cry one get cancelled before it. Like they had it. I had a functional playable demo at PAX when we went, whenever it was that we went, 2014 or something.
It's something like that. But when we saw it there, we just looked at it and just that looks boring.
Well, it's not a matter of just that. Like we went and we saw it. It was working. They had the product. They had the foresight to axe that product.
Yep.
Which, while it seemed like, it was a bit ghastly at the time because, it didn't look great, but they just killed it outright. It was actually, prescient on Bethesda's part. Because what has happened subsequently to
Battleborn?
To Battleborn, to Paladins, to all of these other things that have basically got wrecked.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a phenomenon that I think we're starting to see people pick up on it earlier and earlier.
I think we are certainly with the Battle Royale bandwagon.
Yeah, like I think that like you've got Battle Royale. What's the Battle Royale one called that is like? There's one that's actually called Battle Royale or something, isn't there?
That's Fortnite Battle Royale, and there's PUBG.
Right, so those are the two head-to-head ones.
Yep.
Lawbreakers got sort of trampled in between them.
Lawbreakers was just... Ugh.
Because it was coming out at a time when those were picking up steam. But I think that what we're going to see is a convergence on a particular number of these things that can exist in the space at any one time. And it will start to be seen as too much of a financial risk to try and bring something new into a space which is already occupied by X million dollars worth of investment. I think that you're going to start to see business analysts draw conclusions about where there is space in a given market, rather than assuming that, like with the MMO market, like nobody had seen a participation boom like World of Warcraft provided before. So everybody assumed that, at this sort of exponential rate of growth, there must be a huge amount of untapped people that can be gathered in.
And nope.
The thing is, WoW hit its ceiling.
Yeah.
WoW hit its ceiling and it has just bounced off of it a couple of times and is sort of drifting around below it right now. That means that there is an absolute cap, and I think in the WoW killer era, nobody knew what or where that absolute cap was. Now they know that these caps exist, so they're going to have to start monitoring them from a business analysis perspective. So, we might see that this type of behavior erode somewhat. The sheer lack of creativity when one of these things takes off for the first time and everybody tries to copy it, I think that we are likely to see that, but we're probably less likely to see a scenario where these things get pushed all the way out the door as often.
Yeah, the exception...
We've got nobody to play them.
The exception, of course, remains in the mobile market because, ye gads.
Well, the thing is that mobile developers have no incentive not to just crap out something because it costs so little to make games for that platform. Like, anybody who wants to become a games developer in like at any level these days has to start in the mobile market. Pretty much.
It's entry level.
They've got some contact who can bring them into another studio. They're going to start cutting their teeth on mobile games, meaning that there is an unlimited amount of slave labor that can be dumped into crapping out low effort, low impact games on the mobile platform.
Yeah, and sadly though, Yeah, those low effort games tend to be exactly the same game, just with a different skin. Like, look at all the different Angry Birds clones, all the different city builders, which are just awful money spingers, pay to wait type dealies. Endless runners were a big thing. It's why I'm so annoyed is because there is potential for good games on the mobile. Like, look at Crashlands. Crashlands is excellent, and it's on the mobile, also PC.
I still haven't played it.
Yeah, but for every one Crashlands, there's about 1,000 shovelware titles.
Yeah, and you still get your WoW phenomenon. Like there are a few. The one with the Mr. T guy, that's pretty popular.
That's Castle Crashers.
Yeah,
there's thousands of clones of that as well, by the way.
Yeah, but that one has like an order of magnitude or two more people than the next clone.
Yep.
And a similar thing applies to Fate Grand Order. Like, Fate Grand Order is the single most popular title in the entire Nasuverse franchise family.
Mm-hmm.
The mobile game, by far, more popular than any of its anime, more popular than any of visual novel games. The mobile game, and It is the same as every other gacha, except it's been, tweaked and sort of groomed and tweaked and modified and constantly adjusted to sort of get that perfect balance, which basically turned it into the WoW in the room. Basically, the Fire Emblem gacha didn't hold anywhere near as many people.
No.
It was a case of a analogous crashing and burning to WoW Killers.
Fire Emblem is such a weird franchise. Like, when they bought it and focused on bringing it to the West, it was because, yay, this is great. It's turn-based strategy on the console. But what's with this patting and breeding of your soldiers? What is that?
Patting and breeding.
Yes. You get your two of your characters to breed, and then some time paradox happens, and their offspring becomes a playable character. It's just, what?
Yeah.
And you get to interact directly with your waifu of choice, because that's a thing as well. So okay, you brought it to the West, and then you weirded out the West.
Well, I mean, Fate Grand Order, or like, Fate waifus online is like, it's managed to take off in the West as well, and there's basically no reason stronger than the waifu phenomenon for people to play it. Basically,
everyone's a saber face. Everyone's waifu is a saber face.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of saber face.
So anyway, we can't tangent too much more because otherwise this email is going to take forever. Bandwagons, extremely annoying.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Anyway, there is one survival game that because it is different TM. Subnautica, it's probably the setting, the 3D nature of the environment, the good lighting and sound effects, and the fact that fairly early on you can eliminate the constant hunting for water with a water filtration machine, or you can just play an exploration mode which removes the food and water entirely. Also pretty glowing fish.
Yes.
The biggest problem is that the game is locked into one save slot, and the fact that some essential things that need to be scanned might be overlooked. The big ruined room you're exploring, that it can be scanned too. All in all, Subnautica is a solid recommend if you like this kind of game and you don't have aquaphobia.
Okay, so Subnautica gets massive props for one reason above everything else. It's finished. It's still got a few bugs, but it's actually a finished product.
I don't know anything about this one.
So it's a survival underwater exploration type dealie. So you crash land on an alien planet. I've actually played it on the stream before. And you just need to gather up materials to survive, build yourself a bit of a base so you can access more advanced machinery, bigger submarines, and ultimately explore the planet and find a way off. But there's also a story to find as you go through. A lot of it's told through data pads and audio logs, but there's other bits and pieces you'll find just by exploring the environment after certain world events happen. But if you don't want to, you can skip the story entirely. That's perfectly fine. The other unique thing is it actually has an end goal, which is build up your escape shuttle and get off the planet. So it's good, and it's got a very good atmosphere. It hasn't relied on procedural generation, which makes for a much more cohesive world. So yeah, it is very, very good. So if you like survival games, try that one because it's one of the ones that you can actually recommend without putting 1,000 asterisks behind it.
Procedural generation was another thing that I think got sort of bandwagoning after a while.
It
seemed like people assumed at some point that there were no drawbacks.
This is very much not the case. So yeah, you kind of had an upswing with the bandwagoning of roguelikes and Minecraft clones. And you still see it pop up here and there, but yeah, it's starting to peter off a bit, thankfully. Because you cannot tell a cohesive story, really, in a procedurally generated world. It just does not work properly.
Well, I mean, you can if you limit the parts of it that are procedural. Like Diablo, for instance, had a lot of procedural stuff. I don't know if they kept it in Diablo 3 or not.
No, I don't think they did. No, they didn't.
Right. But at any rate, there is a lot of procedurally generated stuff in Diablo 2, but it still had a story in there, and you could still follow it. It's just that they had structured it such that basically all of the procedural stuff happened in a pen.
Yeah.
There were certain fixed things that always had to be in the same place.
Yeah.
Like they had clear limits circumscribing what could and could not be procedurally generated.
Yeah, basically it was big set piece, and it might be over here or it might be over here, and that's about it.
I know that there was, and to some extent still is, this sort of era of believing that procedural generation is the way of the future. Like that you're going to that there's going to be this point, this sort of like games development singularity where computer software will be able to design levels better than people can. But at the moment, it just seems to be a crutch for lazy development.
Yes, yeah. So there can be worlds that are really nice when procedurally generated. That tends to be your voxel type worlds. If you actually have a proper, rendered world, like look at the Arc procedurally generated world maps. They're a mess. I'm not sure why they actually put that in, because yeah.
I don't have any particular commentary to make on that.
It's a mess.
Yeah, I think, like, if you look at the sort of the vision of the future, let's say as an example, Sword Art Online.
Oh dear.
The concept that they went with from scratch, basically, was that the Cardinal system would design the game content within certain preset parameters, and that you could somehow successfully generate an entire world plus quests plus NPCs based on enough inputted procedural generation data. But at some point, you've got to feed so much data in to make it work. As well, I've just designed it to be good for
yeah.
Leaving sort of janky loose ends lying around.
Yeah, to create an AI that advanced, you're basically creating Skynet. So Sword Art Online is going to happen. Except without the scientist at the top who just does things for giggles. Spoilers, by the way.
Yeah. But I mean, the reason why I bring that up is that it was set in the future, right? That was what people thought was going to be the way things would. And I really don't know if that's going to be the case. Because I think that in order to define enough parameters for procedural generation to make the sort of experiences that, handcrafting can provide, you need to put so much data in that you might as well not. I think that procedural generation has a role, but I think that the sorts of things that will be procedurally generated will probably be limited, like, forests and civilian townspeople and that sort of thing.
Yeah. All right.
Things which, having a certain amount of randomness adds to things rather than just pads the game.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, yeah. Subnautica. Excellent. I'll probably play that on the stream next week, actually, to show you kind of what some of the later game looks like. It involves lava. Lots of lava. Right. Also, also Cthulhu's. Little ones. Anyway. Little Cthulhu's.
Okay. Anyway, next. Another game I have played recently was West of Loathing. Words fail me to describe the experience. a black and white stick figure, pencil-drawn Western RPG that runs on the Loathing brand of humour. Also, almost any combat can be resolved with a skill check or an item. And since it's a Loathing game, you can expect the main quest to be utterly banal, although it does end with a train chase. The side quests, on the other hand, are pretty neat. And the best thing, you can fast travel from any dungeon without going back to the surface. Solid recommend. Just don't use the auto-spend XP feature, it's completely broken.
Oh dear. I was looking at that because Steam keeps sticking it in my face every 5 minutes. So it does look unique. It's like just stick figures, very basic. But it's got a lot of recommendations. People seem to like it. I bet you if I go to Steam now, it's actually trying to sell it to me. Let me see. Store. And no, that's Metal Gear Survive. That's a survival game set in Metal Gear. Why?
Well, people have been waiting for that one for a long time.
Yeah. Huh. For a change, Steam is not actually trying to sell me West of Loathing. There's a first. Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, I don't know anything about West of Loathing. I have to.
I think I'll try it out.
Who even uses those? Anyway, next paragraph. My adventures in Hideous Destructor continue. I have started a playthrough in TNT, which is superior to Plutonia, and the Brutal Doom starter pack. They seem to be more balanced for HD.
Okay.
Actually, I'm surprised how often this mod gets updated. Things can get pretty crazy if you start using the blur sphere, for example. Hallucinations, fake error messages, but you'll be invisible and demons will just go berserk and attack each other.
That sounds like breaking the game for fun and profit.
Yeah. I like how every time he mentions TNT, he has to run down Plutonia while he's at it. Like, I agree with him. Plutonia was awful. Like, I don't think I ever finished a single level of Plutonia because I could never find the way through. They were incoherent and full to the brim with high HP bullet sponge monsters.
Blech.
So, I wonder, it's entirely possible that there are levels in Plutonia where it is literally impossible to kill everything because you would have to do it with your fists. But he always seems to like to point out just how bad Plutonia is. I never liked it. It's been many, many years since I played it, but those levels are just nonsense.
Yeah. Hideous Destructor, however, sounds really, really silly and really, really fun.
I don't know. He posted something in the chat.
Yes.
Earlier this week, which was referring to Hideous Destructor, and
wasn't it the one that doesn't play nice with anything?
No, that was something that I posted.
Oh right.
He put this in quotes. I have no idea what it to, but I'll just read it out since this is sort of like. I'll have to read it carefully because it's quite nonsensical. This is sort of like gives you an impression of what it is that he's talking about. And I quote from Serathis on our Discord channel. I haven't touched the blur seriously in the entire time it's been in, nor have I ever had anything deeper than persistent lethal damage. I would always find spiritual healing and end up boosting myself to incredible stamina and resistances, so I never experienced aggravated. I touched it recently with the new build, and right now I'm 6 levels in with 60 max health and enough blur in my system that any attempt to purge it that I've found has resulted in immolation by conflicting magics. I'm stacking together spare pistol rounds in a small corner with half a vest, and I'm swimming in hallucination.
Oh my! That sounds ridiculous.
Well, I have no idea what any of that is in aid of, but that more or less gives you a look into what it is he's talking about.
One of these days, we're just going to have to play one of these Doom mods on the stream. We will get to it. We promise. Eventually. Alright. What's next?
I've lost my window because I switched to Discord. Here we go. And finally, Dusk. So, I may have a thing for old school FPSs. I think you figured that out by now. Apparently, we are in a time when the retro is starting to reach into the early 90s. So we have a Dusk, a throwback to old school Quake. Large open levels, this is more of a Doom thing actually. Environmental storytelling, this is a new school thing. And an overall retro feel dominate the game. I do have a few problems however. The overall time to kill seems to be pretty low. I'm talking about Doom 1 trash tier enemies everywhere. They go down in a couple of shots. No sign of Doom 2-ish tanky enemies like the Mancubus or Reverend. Also, Episode 2 is just superior. Far better level design, varied environments, not to mention, unlike Episode 1, you can't cheese the final boss with a crossbow. Whose idea was it to put the boss behind a giant door when you have a weapon that can pierce enemies and walls?
So, I looked at Dusk, and yes, it looks like it's a good, interesting, old-school shooter. But it's ugly as sin. It does look like Doom. Not Doom, sorry. Quake. The original Quake. With everything that implies.
I think it looks worse than Quake.
It might. So, there's a reason why we don't do polygon graphics like that anymore. It's because they make your eyes hurt. Other than that, though, it looks good. It looks interesting.
I don't know. I think that you can do them. You can do them in a way that is sort of charmingly retro instead of hideous. Like
eye bleeding.
The fact is that I think that this is uniformly worse. I think Dusk is uniformly worse looking than Quake in every way, and to the point where it's almost comically bad. The thing with Quake was, I mean, it was primitive. It was probably the first full polygon shooter, and it did well. I mean, there were sort of like pseudo polygon games, but I think the first time that they really just decided to build an FPS from the ground up with polygons and make it, good and big, it was Quake. But I feel like while there is a lot of really crude design in there, the aesthetic tied together a lot better than it does from what I've seen of Dusk. Like, Dusk just looks sloppy by comparison.
To be fair, at least Quake, everything was uniformly brown.
Well, you could say that it's uniformly brown, or that they actually used an awful lot of different browns to give it a little bit of depth.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Dusk is just sort of cartoonish.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just that it might be mean of me to compare,
maybe
a janky one-horse town-made game with what was basically a blockbuster at the time. But I don't know. I think Dusk looks crap. Like it looks like crap. Like, I would rather just go back and play Quake again.
So, yeah, I don't know if it looked better, I'd probably try it. But yeah,
I think it's not just conventionally bad looking. It's like, I think that it looks sort of like so bad it's abuse to the eyes just to look at it. Like, I can't think of a reason why I'd expose myself to this.
Hmm.
I don't like it. Maybe it's just a matter of taste. I think it looks heinous.
Yeah. Okay, and we have a postscript.
Postscript. I've lost my window again. Postscript. Speaking of World War II, I'm actually excited for a bunch of those games coming out. Battalion 1944 just released. This is the one I'm not excited for because it's a 5v5 CQ old school COD clone.
Nah.
Festung Europa and Traction Wars are like, we swear the project is not dead. I know we released 2 news posts in the last 3 years, but we pinky swear. Gates of Hell and Hell Let Loose have way too similar names for me to remember which one is the squad-based RTS and which one I Indiegogo'd. But that one is a 50 versus 50 large-scale tactical battle sim, a mix of Red Orchestra, Company of Heroes, and Project Reality. And there is Postscriptum, a spin-off from Squad by the Project Reality World War II team, to be released soonish. Yeah, I have a bias towards an area where it wasn't people with identical 30-round automatics firing at each other. Seraphis.
Alright. I'm glad to see World War II's making a return as an era, as a theme. Like, we went through way too many World War II games maybe 10 years ago. And then we ended up with a massive modern shooter. Everyone is doing this now, type dealy.
Yeah, some of the World War II games were really good. Like, the early Call of Duty were good.
Yeah,
they were very, very good. Like, the single player was extremely good. The multiplayer,
multiplayer is not my thing at the best times.
it was all about atmosphere, and nobody had managed to really execute on a sort of a realistic atmosphere in the sort of the World War II games, I think, until the first COD game. The first COD game really hit it out of the park. Unfortunately, it was a scenario where everybody then decided they needed a bandwagon on top of it. There were, of course, the other franchises like the Medal of Honor that people liked, but there was something a bit more visceral about the way COD executed it compared with Medal that I liked.
Yeah.
I think that COD really took off because it blended the sort of heavily action-oriented sort of Twitch gameplay style with the World War II setting, where previously World War II had always been the venue of FPSs that were sort of very clunky and stodgy and required you to do a whole bunch of busy work.
Yep.
Because it was trying to be realistic.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to be atmospheric.
Or even fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, World War II, I don't know if it's necessarily fun in the convention. Because, I crapped myself a few times in that first COD game. Because a lot of the stuff I'd never seen done before. As far as, trying to bring the player into that environment. But, yeah. I don't know, there's still room in that space, I think, but I don't know, I feel like the whole genre of PSs needs to be aired out a bit somehow.
Yeah, but I'm not exactly sure how you do that. Aside from...
Is like, it feels like over-farmed pasture sort of thing.
Yeah. Like put Call of Duty and Battlefield out to pasture for a little while and let something new come in.
Yeah, plant some legumes or something, man. Like, we need to rehabilitate this space.
Give us some more serious Sams. I'd like that. Oh, wait, no.
I don't know if I want more serious Sams, because I don't want that to become the next thing and then get tired.
True.
I feel like that there really needs to be something. I feel like that someone needs to recognise the exhaustion of that space and then just let it cool off a bit. Jumping from big thing to big thing to big thing has just tired the whole thing out.
It's like agriculture. You need to let the soil recover a bit.
I mean, the people... The thing is that the people who like TF2 are playing TF2.
Because they like hats.
TF2 didn't suffer any major setbacks until they decided that they no longer wanted service. Which has basically been a disaster for their player base. And one which they have refused to acknowledge as far as I'm aware. But generally speaking, like, I think the people that are hardcore in a particular game keep playing those particular games. I don't know, like, are these big titles, like, are they continuing to make vast quantities of money? Like, I don't know. I would have liked, say, Star Wars Battlefront 2 to be good.
At its core, apparently it was. Yeah, they did.
Like, everything that is good about it is hidden now.
Yes, it's buried under crap and controversy.
But yeah, like they had the to do something there, which could have been, another big thing, not necessarily. Like, I feel like you can deploy something in the Star Wars space without turning it into a bandwagon situation. But I don't know. I feel like the entire lot of them needs to be just allowed to rest for a bit, and somebody needs to come up with some new ideas. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that the Call of Duty, for instance, has been stretched so unbelievably thin now.
Yeah, going back to World War One gave it a bit of a kick, but at the end of the day, it's still the same game.
Wasn't it Battlefield? COD did it as well.
COD did it as well, yeah. So
yeah, but well, I mean, there's interesting things you could. A lot of other stuff has just been turned away from its purpose. Like, for instance, Far Cry have just become replicates of each other.
Yeah.
Like, from what I've heard, there is no difference between Far Cry 3, 4, and 5 other than the setting aesthetics.
I'd honestly...
Game done over and over.
I'd like to see Far Cry go the Saints Row route. Where...
acknowledge that it's absurd.
And play with it and just go nuts with it, yes. because they've shown they could with what was it called now? Not Primal, the other one. The ridiculous 80s one, anyway. So they've shown they can be absurd and ridiculous. Blood Dragon, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see more of that.
They know that there's capacity to do that within what they've done.
Yeah.
I think that they need to be a bit more adventurous and stop trying to do the same formula over and over again, because there's no need to do that formula.
You can only climb radio towers so many times.
It's like you don't need to deploy the exact same thing in that framework. You can do other things with your open world. You don't always have to execute in precisely the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to try and be increasingly edgy either.
No, we can do without the edge, thank you very much.
The thing with edge is that if you do edge a couple times in a row, eventually you're going to get locked into the position of trying to outdo yourself every time. And Far Cry 5 offended literally everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, nobody was happy
with
what they did there. And that was on top of the fact that the gameplay itself was tight. But, you know, we've seen a lot of that type of thing. And there's other, like, Wolfenstein has turned its game from the original, you know, of the reboots, the original Wolfenstein of the reboots, previous one. That one was a really solid game that was sort of like in the proudest tradition of running around shooting Nazis and, you know, fighting Nazis on the moon and blowing and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the subsequent one, they turned the entire thing into a political propaganda end, because that's more important than making a good game. That's the sort of thing. Like, there's these other concerns that are getting in the way. In the case of Far Cry, they're afraid to do anything different. In the case of Wolfenstein, they were more than willing to sacrifice any kind of quality gameplay as an emphasis in favor of sending a political message. Like, why write a good story if you can just, you know, pander to the critics?
Yeah, I'll give them credit for Assassin's Creed, where they took it away for a year and they retooled it a bit and gave us something a little bit different. I mean, the historical revisionism's still there, but
the historical revisionism gets steadily worse with every entry.
Yes, it does.
That I linked in the No Excuses Discord plug this week, showing, like, you know, there's this picture of a vase, because they've got this new mode right now in their new one, which is about touring history basically, and so they've got a picture of an urn with basically a drawing of the of a scholar sort of situation, and so it says in the caption for this urn, in the historical blurb, it says, "Here, both girls and boys are shown attending a class given by one of the rhetoricians of the era. The team made the choice to show both genders attending class within the context of the game world. Even though it is historically inaccurate, the team felt it was not necessary to prioritize historical sexism over inclusive gameplay." Now, I haven't confirmed that this is a legit screenshot, but I see no reason to believe that it's not. And I haven't seen anybody call it out as fake personally, so and it would not surprise me, because we've seen them do this before. And I posted a series of other screenshots which basically have like, you know, classical statues from antiquity with all the naughty bits covered up.
Clamshells everywhere.
Yeah.
The
The entirety of that game has been replaced the current year.
It could have been worse. They could have gone the Monty Python route, I suppose, where it's just, you know, white and red polka dots boxer shorts on everything. So
that would have been better.
It would have been funnier.
Because, well, it would have been better. Because then you could see that what they were doing was censorship.
Yeah. And they were well aware of it.
What they have done here is they have just made the old world fit their sensibilities. If you put polka dot boxer shorts on everything, you are acknowledging that there is a difference between your sensibilities and the ancient world. In this case, they are modifying the ancient world to fit their sensibility.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crass and disgusting, and they should stop doing it. Like, the whole Assassin's Creed franchise needs to be put out to pasture. It's over.
It's
done.
Yeah. It honestly should have ended at 2, because that's when the story finished, or a story finished.
It's done. It's done. There's nothing more to be gotten from. You could
No.
have made a cool new game about pirates. Instead, you made Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
And you know what? Nobody gave a toss about your silly assassination part. Everybody just wanted to sail ships around the Caribbean, and I can't blame them because that was better
Yes.
than doing the same old for the nth zillionth time.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody outside America cares about the American Revolutionary War. We don't understand it. We don't learn about it in school.
They don't even
And I
have any
expect
good
that most
rooftops to
people-
faff around on.
I expect that most people who do learn about it in school don't know anything about it either. Because
Well,
they were asleep in that class.
A lot of it's been bleached out now, from what I can tell, but that's another rant.
Well, I expect it's been bleached and overwritten and bleached and overwritten, bleached and overwritten. And they have the Americans have a mythology about their founding.
It's a
because
mythology now?
there are so many stories that have and traditions that have been traded about over what the prominent characters were like at that time that I don't even know what is historically true anymore about that particular scenario. But yeah, it's I feel like Assassin's Creed is dead. Like, just stop.
Yeah.
Ubi needs to stop. This is one of those things that you've got to put it out to pasture. You can only do so many sequels and spin-offs. Call of Duty needs to end. Battlefield needs to end. Assassin's Creed needs to end. A lot of these just need to end. In the heyday of gaming, boom and innovation, in the 90s and early 2000s, we didn't have this sort of long-running thing outside of Mario and Sonic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was all. And now we see that, the perpetuation of Sonic has been dismal.
Yeah.
Mario has sporadically escaped the curse.
That's because Mario is, well, Mario.
But I mean, if you look at say someone who started as late as, say, Crash Bandicoot,
Mm-hmm.
get past Crash Bandicoot 3 and lay aside Crash Team Racing, everything that came out of that franchise was pure garbage.
Yeah.
Like, after that point, as they tried to stretch it further and further and further and try and spin it out further and further and further, everything went to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah. Crash Team Racing only got one good game out of it, by the way. Maybe two, but Fusion
I'm only
is
talking
awful.
about the first one because
Yeah.
the fact is I give that one a special pass because of the sheer number of unrelated people that I know who put their finger on that game as one of the cherished memories of their childhood.
Yeah. Yep, I can definitely agree with that. So, anyway, we should move on. Speaking of Sonic, let's tangent right there. This, I don't know why. Why? There's a Sonic movie coming out being produced by Paramount. And
But
it's
why?
going to be, I think we may have mentioned it before, it's going to be a fusion of CGI and live action. So, Sonic 06, anyone?
But why?
I don't know. Like, Sonic Mania doesn't count, so Sonic hasn't actually released a good game since Generations.
They're constantly trying to take these next steps for the IP, but it never goes well. Why do they keep thinking this is going to work?
I don't know.
This is appalling.
Rather than just sit back, put it and just focus on what Sonic is about, which is going really, really fast through a platforming maze. But instead, they keep duct taping on all this unnecessary crap. Like werewolves. The 3D platforming in Unleashed was actually quite good, but then it was contrasted by the God of War style werewolf bits, which were just horrendously bad. So they've shown they can do the 3D platforming well, they just don't. But anyway, so yes, Sonic the movie. Last time Sonic was in a movie was Wreck-It Ralph, by the way, and he just said nothing because he was on a billboard.
Is that so? I
That was,
don't actually remember. I saw Wreck-It Ralph once a long time ago.
yeah, he was aping the old Sonic Says educational bits that he used to have in the old Sonic cartoons.
Oh, I vaguely remember that.
They were corny as all hell. And Robotnik,
Yeah.
I swear, has some sort of disorder. But
But, I would actually be legit excited for this movie if the people that are doing the script for the Sonic Boom cartoon were writing the script for this.
Yeah, the Sonic Boom cartoon is surprisingly watchable. I know that's high praise. Actually, so is the Skylanders cartoon on Netflix. That is also surprisingly watchable. But yeah, the Sonic Boom cartoon, at least they're very self-aware. But
Yeah, there's a lot of gags. There's even a gag about Sonic the Hedgehog fan art.
oh yes,
It's really funny.
yeah, they're
It's,
not. There's a whole episode where they just pan on Justin Bieber for one as well. I forget what they do to him. It's something truly horrible at the end, though.
Yeah, but we're gonna end up with like Sonic Bestiality Edition again.
Just why?
This isn't necessary. Why do they do this?
Yeah,
I never asked for this.
I did not, and I don't think anybody did who really knows what they were actually asking for. Oh boy. Alright, next article. That was just a little one, and it's just a facepalm. Ugh.
Lost my tab again. Where is the show host?
You want the Discords.
Right, here we go.
Take your pick.
Where's the things that I linked?
All over the place.
Where's something that's not depressing that I linked?
Doesn't exist.
Yeah, I can't find one. So I have to go with the depressing one. So apparently we're reliving the 90s.
Oh dear. In what way?
There's a tax has been proposed against violent video games because, and I quote, there is evidence that children exposed to violent video games at a young age tend to act more aggressively than those who are not.
Jack Thompson, is that you?
And so they want to tax them and give the resources derived from the tax to schools to help deal with aggression or something.
Except that's not at all what's going to happen.
Mental health problems. Well, yeah, that's the thing. Money is fungible.
Yes.
Once it's in the tax system, there is no need for them to do with it what they
say they will.
They say.
So
none whatsoever. This is just another excuse to tax people for no reason.
I'd love to see his information saying that violent games cause players to be violent, because every study that's been done on this since the 80s has said the complete opposite.
Well, you say that, but you're counting a specific set of studies here. There is another type of study, and that type of study is called "We commissioned a study into X," and in parentheses, with the intention of them discovering that Y.
Where they start at the end point and work backwards.
Yeah, funnily enough, they usually discover why.
Yeah.
So, that's the type of study that you get out of a political think tank most of the time.
Yeah, climate change, anyone?
Yeah, the climate change is an example of that. Climate change, like the actual truth behind whether or not there is global warming is irrelevant to whether or not the state says that there is. Because the state paid for that result. Yeah. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. The state bought a particular result. Of course they got that result.
Yeah, the science is irrelevant.
Like, that's not how you do. That's not how you do science. You don't buy the result that you want in advance.
No.
And anybody who's spent any time in academia knows that this is true. A lot of them will if they're being funded by a state entity, will deny that it's true. But it is 100% true that a lot of these results can be bought, because when you're paid to find something, the temptation to find that thing, especially if you are an academic with very few scruples and you don't have tenure yet and you need money, you're going to be very, very tempted to find the result that you've been asked to find.
Even if that does mean fudging some numbers here and there.
And that is very much the case with the scenario here. Like, the reason why there's all this supposedly large body of evidence about violent video games having a negative effect on people and causing them to be aggressive, like, the thing is that aggression in children when they're placed in a competitive situation is a natural reaction because children are basically animals that haven't been civilized yet. Like the part of growing up is to learn to control your impulses.
Mm-hmm.
If you prompt someone to behave with aggression when their their amygdala is not fully formed, you're going to get aggressive behavior out.
Yep.
All it takes is a little bit of fiddling to make sure that that response appears in the right category for your taste. So, I mean, the studies that are done by people who have less of a vested interest usually find that the correlation is so weak as to be irrelevant between those things. And the more notable fact about this is we've danced this dance before,
Yep.
and yet here we are again,
Mm-hmm.
again. This is more than likely just going to be, the result of the absolute media clown show that has followed this most recent school shooting. Where was it? Parkland?
Yeah, I think so.
In Florida? Yeah,
Mm.
like it's been an absolute media circus. In fact, it has been one of the single most disgusting things that I've ever seen. Is what has followed this school shooting.
But it happens every time.
No, there's been far worse this time. Like, there are people at CNN who I think should be in jail at this point for the sort of things that they've been doing.
Ugh.
Like, I've watched some of these kids that they've been trotting out to speak in favor of gun control, and you know what they remind me of? They remind me of Vietnam War POWs.
Oh dear.
Like, they're talking through their tears about how much they've lost, and that's all genuine grief, and then they get done with that, and then through the same tears they lapse into this sort of robotic recitation of pro-gun control talking points.
Right.
And the people, the kids that have been turned down by CNN for not wanting to read the script are very, very unhappy, and they're finally starting to get some coverage.
Good.
Like, the entire thing has been a con job, and
Yeah.
they are exploiting the grief of these traumatized kids to push a political agenda. That's got to be some kind of abuse.
Yeah. I when these things sort of happen, I tend to just avoid all that because every time it's sickening, but this time seems particularly egregious.
Yeah, like it's the abuse of these kids that really, really bothers me. Like, these kids have been coached to think in a certain way to the political benefit of media benefactors. Like, that is the entire thing has been put together deliberately, and you can see it. It's obvious. They are not trying to hide it. I saw a video clip of a kid who was being coached practicing his lines and repeating them over and over again until he got the right, sort of tone. Like, the entire thing has been a farce. The tragedy was real. The grief is real. The things that these kids are being coached to say are lines from somebody else, using them as a mouthpiece that is more amenable to public sympathy.
All right, let's not get too bogged down on that. All right, let me see. Next article then. What do we got? Let's see. Reliving the 90s. The way that they've ruined the Ninja Turtles. Ignoring that. It's 90s Edge is what that is. They all look like frogs except for Raphael, who looks just like 90s Edgelord. And Splinter looks like a gerbil. Because reasons. But, why can't they just not ruin the Ninja Turtles? Please? I mean, Michael Bay ruined them once, now they're being ruined again. Let's not say that they've seemed to have left April out entirely. There's just a completely different character called April now. Rant. Anyway. They're still launching content for Final Fantasy 15. They're calling this Year 2.
I'm not going to do the rant I'm not going to do the rant on season passes again. But
no, don't do that.
The Year 2 thing is a real tip-off.
Yes.
These things are constructed in advance with particular lifespan plans, and that they're intending to sell those plans regardless of what people want.
And yeah, it seems like Square Enix for their Final Fantasy series has really grabbed this whole thing by both hands. They were bad with 13, they're even worse with 15.
I really miss buying Final Fantasy games and just getting the game.
And getting a nice self-contained story, even if it doesn't make complete sense. Ugh.
Ugh.
Like Final
just-
Fantasy
ugh.
7 and 8 and 9. 7 has a lot of supplementary material because it's got a whole lot of plot holes in it. But it's still a
But they
self-contained
spun
story.
They spun out a franchise from that. Like
Mm.
they were each time they were selling you a game. Like sometimes the game was Crisis Core, and sometimes the game was like Dirge of Cerberus. But nevertheless, you were still buying a product each time.
Yeah.
You weren't getting the shrapnel surrounding a product thrown at you.
But,
Like I want the story when I buy the game. Like I think that Final Fantasy 15 in a lot of senses to me is irredeemable at this point, and it is more than likely a product of its troubled development cycle.
mhm.
I just wish that they would put it to bed and accept that it's a bad deal. We still got some favourable coverage out of it. It came out in the end. Let's just call it done and move on to bigger and better things.
Let's start writing the next one. No. Got to monetize it. So we're getting the PC version of Final Fantasy X. It's calling the Royal version, which has all the, and I'm using quotation marks here, Year 1 content in it. Which means it's going to have some of it, and you'll have to buy others, because that's how these things always work. And it's got workshop support, and to promote that, it's got a Gordon Freeman costume. Because reasons? I guess?
Because that's the thing most associated with Steam, I guess.
I guess.
Is a game that hasn't, come out with a new entry in the franchise, and heaven only knows how long.
Portal doesn't count. Portal's its
Portal
own
doesn't-
franchise now. It doesn't count. Yeah.
I didn't count it before.
No.
Like it is no way tied to Black Mesa, other than the fact that Black Mesa exists.
They're in the same universe, that's about it. So, yeah, here you go. Here's a reminder of a game that's never going to get their story finished in another game that's probably never going to have its story finished. And it's because it's Square Enix and PC version, it's going to be broken on launch. So, have fun with that. I don't know. Maybe I'm being overly cynical about it. Maybe I'm not being cynical enough. I don't know.
I think that cynicism is the appropriate response to any kind of Half-Life product.
Yes.
Because there's really nothing. There's nothing about Half-Life that's worth a damn.
No.
Like, I was never especially warm to the game to begin with. Like it really was not my thing. I'm not really sure what else I can say about that other than it was really thing. But and the jamming Gordon Freeman in there like he's a character that people care about, like no, the only people that care about Gordon Freeman is like the one guy who still thinks that Half-Life 3 is coming out any day now. Well, I'm pretty sure that there's probably a cult of them on Reddit or something.
This E3 for certain.
For realsies. Like, I mean, I think that one of two things has happened. Either, number one, Half-Life 3 is never going to come out and it was never going to come out, and it's been axed, and the script leak that we saw actually was the story outline for it, and there's basically no way that anything will ever be done with Half-Life again.
Mm-hmm.
Or number two, Gaben has actually been waiting until everybody has given up entirely in order to actually start production, because that's the sort of trolley thing he might do.
Yeah.
And I think that is, an order of magnitude at least less likely than the first scenario. But, yeah, I just... Gordon Freeman is not cool. He was never cool. The point was that he wasn't.
Yeah.
And the point was that he wasn't a character. So why are you trying to make him a character after the fact?
He's a blank slate. That's all he was ever meant to be.
Yeah, he's purposefully a blank slate.
Yes.
Purposefully people don't care about him.
He's
I
a
don't know.
beard and a crowbar, and that's it. Speaking of E3, by the way, EA has announced that they're doing their usual presser, which is not explicitly at E3.
Yeah, it's at like the hotel down the road or whatever.
Yes, or in some extremely pretentious club. So I'm predicting two things, or one of two things here. Either excessive ass covering, the least likely option, or overwhelming smarm.
At least one new game with battle in the name announced.
I think they're going to put a big push behind Anthem, and that Anthem is going to look, well, it already looks an awful lot like Destiny.
It is Destiny. It's
It
Destiny
is.
with a jetpack.
It's Destiny with jetpack. Doesn't Destiny have jetpacks in it as well?
I don't know.
I don't know. If it doesn't, it should. Everything is improved by jetpacks, but
Except Destiny.
well,
Like I think Anthem's going to be bad. I'll just lay it out there.
I'm
and
gonna
I don't have
lay
any
it-
basis for thinking this. I just
So
think
am I.
that it's going to be bad because this is more of that naked bandwagoning that Serathis was complaining about.
yes, and more the point, it's Destiny, and I think they're going to just rip off Eververse. Now, Eververse is terrible. It is pay to win at its absolute well, no, not quite at its absolute worst, but it's a money system where you basically buy weapons and power and things. But
I don't get it.
yeah, you buy your power. But I'm expecting that. So well, actually, even in that last year's E3 trailer, it showed hints of it, where Anthem is going to be just chock full of microtransactions. Like if you watch that trailer, there's something like a featured skill or exoskeleton.
Watching that trailer made me feel nauseous, and not from motion sickness.
No,
From the sheer level of cynicism.
we're gonna have to watch this. Unfortunately, I don't want to because I might just cringe myself inside out, or just spontaneously combust in a big ball of cynicism. But we gotta watch it for you guys.
Oh, it's just. Oh, I don't. They're always so cringy. I wonder if they're gonna some unknown sports celebrity, but unknown to game players, sports celebrity on again.
Oh, no doubt. They do it every year.
Seems to be one of their favourite things.
Or their totally fictional character, who is totally a real sportsman, but totally not.
It's just quite awful. Their things are their presses are always unpleasantly cringy.
Yeah.
I think they've got very strange ideas about the sort of things that need to be prioritised in a presser.
At least Ubisoft is kind of aware of it with their Just Dance bits. Because they're just cringe, just terrible.
I think that they know that in some respects not redeemable.
Yeah.
Like they know that they're never going to be cool.
No.
Nobody's ever going to think that Just Dance is cool. It's like bad by definition.
Yeah. So
Being cringe is sort of what it's about. Like dancing games have always been like that, right? Like your aptitude in a dancing game is directly inversely proportional to how afraid you are of being cringy in public.
Mm-hmm. So
Unless you're rich enough to own an arcade machine.
I just wish they'd apply some of that self-awareness to the rest of their presses. So instead of getting in B-grade comedians and no-name celebrities and things like that.
No, I'm telling you, bruh. The next big thing, Rabid Souls.
You know, I know you're joking, but it could happen. It could very well happen. So it's going to be an interesting E3, possibly for all the wrong reasons this year. Like Sony's going to keep cut sharp and do their usual thing of just here's games, go buy games. We like games. You're going to have Microsoft who says you might like games, but we're going to show you TV spurts and things you don't care about.
It's like the bookies' odds on them announcing a game with battle in the name probably pays out at about 1.1.
Oh yeah, like, I'm expecting maybe 2 or 3 battle royale type games announced. But I'm expecting EA not to come back to their customers hat in hand and say, well, we made some mistakes, we're going to learn from this. No, I expect them to double down and really jam microtransactions down people's necks.
Did they have a pretend indie studio as well?
If they have, they've probably shut it down by now. They've got EA Access, I believe they called it.
Oh, is that theirs? That their EA Access? That was their indie thing.
I believe it was.
It seems to be.
What was that? Oh, no, it's just a bit of feedback there. It's alright, it's gone now.
Like I feel like there's it was fashionable for a while to have this fake indie studio so you could act like you were hip or whatever it is that you're acting like.
No, now it's fashionable to donate to a charity that doesn't actually help anything and funnels money directly into someone's pocket.
I see.
We saw a lot of that last year. So,
well, the thing is that that's not tax deductible, you know.
Exactly. I'm expecting Ubisoft to come out with a new Assassin's Creed that proves they've learned absolutely nothing. Square Enix, I'd like to see a Just Cause, but I think we'll just see more Final Fantasy 15.
I don't know, do we need another Just Cause?
Just Cause 3 was ridiculous, but it had faults.
Well, I mean, I suppose that the thing that you need to do is you need to be able to a sort of a particular level of originality. And in emergent gameplay, originality is more important than you might think. Because what tends to happen is that the same things emerge over and over again if you don't sort of groom the environment enough.
Yep, you can only grapple hook some bit of farm equipment, or more commonly a farm animal, to helicopters so many times and in so many ways.
Yeah, it's. I think that I don't know. Like, I'm sort of on sandboxes in the bandwagoning camp again. Like, I feel like we have enough of them, or at least we did have enough of them. I think that what we have at the moment is too many mundane sandboxes. Like, what do I mean by this?
Big open world with nothing in it.
Sandboxes that are basically just the mundane world, with very little of any note in it. Like, I can very rarely stomach playing a sandbox. However, I did stomach playing Saints Row. I didn't play the fourth one, which is the most absurd, but I did play the third one. And the reason why it was so easy for me to take was because it was ridiculous. Because it wasn't just, you know, the real world like in insofar as it's the real world in Grand Theft Auto. Like, there's not a great deal of originality in Grand Theft. Like, I don't know what the writing is like, relatively speaking, on their single player story modes, but eventually you've punched enough random people on the sidewalk.
Yeah,
maybe that's just me. Maybe other people don't get sick of punching random people on the sidewalk. But
it's just doing it in new and creative ways.
But it's like you said, you can only attach so many things, and it's always a farm animal and a helicopter. Like,
yes.
They change the layout of the things, but they don't change the things themselves.
No.
It's not quite the same. It's not quite what it needs to be to breathe new life into it. I think Just Cause 4 would be like, we have just caused a little bit too much of it. Like, what are you going to throw in there to make it stand out from the previous three? What justifies doing this again? And I think that people really need to think about these, you know, long-running sequels in those terms. Like, what about this new entry that we're making justifies doing another entry? Or is it that we're justifying it as being worthwhile because it will make a lot of money?
So, usually it's the latter, unfortunately.
Well, the thing is that that's not helpful to anybody.
No.
Like, it's going to, like, in the short term, you might make a bunch of money, but you also kill the potential of that franchise. Like,
Assassin's Creed.
People will begin to associate it with being a cash-in, which you don't want, because people start to ignore it.
Yeah. All right, moving on. We've got a couple more things. Funcom is doing something. Something.
Unfortunately, that something is not making Secret World Legends any good.
Yeah. Oh dear. So it's...
Which is what I wish they had done.
They're unveiling a new game. It's got 4 characters sitting around a bar, so I'm expecting some sort of co-op shooter survival thing.
I really, really hope it's not.
Yeah.
Like, Did we have a Left 4 Dead phase? Was there a phase where everybody tried to make Left 4 Dead?
Briefly,
Or was it just rolled into the general zombie?
it was kind of rolled into the base zombie thing. We got killing floor out of it, which is actually kind of fun. If you've got the right players, if you don't have the right players, it's bad. But we've got Fortnite coming out, and if this is another take on it, I wouldn't be surprised. Currently they've just got one character who's sitting around the bar and some rather bad voice acting to go with it. And that's it. That's all we really know. The site is called countdown20, word0.com. If you want to have a look at it.
To us actually announcing what our product is going to be.
Yes. So that's a thing.
Countdown to the product that will hopefully justify Secret World Legends pile.
Secret World Legends being just a nice quick cash in.
I don't even know if it was a cash in. Like, you have to actually entice people to pay money if you want to cash in.
I still say they should have redone the starting area.
Well, they did redo the starting area in a certain way, except it made it worse instead of better.
It did make it worse. Okay, and lastly, I think it's lastly anyway, Terra has...
oh no! There's good news and bad news.
Yes, should we start with the good news?
The good news is that they have decided to release the Brawler class for male human characters.
Yay!
So you don't have to play a lady if you want to be a Brawler. So the main reason that this is notable is the first time ever that they've bothered game content that is like not female and or Ellen.
Yeah, because it's all fan service, and it's all needing an adult, but mostly fan service. So I'm glad that they're doing that and they're opening up, because honestly, I do not want to always play waifish, stick thin females with big boobs. That gets old really quick.
But I do, but I don't want other people to have to, because it makes the game less likely to be successful because there are people that don't.
Yeah. So what you currently have is every brawler looks exactly the same. Every reaper looks exactly the same. Every gunner has slight variations because there's two races, which look more or less the same, except one has horns.
No, there are three now.
Oh, there's three now?
It could be an Ellen. Because they added Ellen. Well, of course they added Ellen.
Of course they added Ellen. So, yeah, still need an adult, but at least they're opening the door a bit. Now for the bad. They've added literally
loot
gambling.
Boxes.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about loot boxes in a while now, have we?
For a week. This one's bad. It's really, really bad. So, how to approach this? Okay. So, they've got a limited run of loot boxes that they've put out. And they're calling them, I believe it's Federation Gem Crates. So, you pay your EMP, which is their funny money, 195 EMP. And out of it will spit either 15 to 100 sapphires, 30 to 200 rubies, 750 to 800 emeralds, and 75 to 80 diamonds. Which you basically just sell straight to a vendor for in-game cash.
And that's not that's all ore.
That's an ore, by the way, yes.
And there are also other rarity factors associated with like which ones are more likely to come up.
Yes. So
that is to say, the low rarity ones are most likely to.
Yeah, going through the Reddit thread that's discussing, I say discussing, they're just panning out on these. The diamonds don't have no shining up, like to anyone.
Well, that's because diamonds are worth a lot.
Yes, they are.
It's like emeralds.
So there is a chance for these to jackpot and give you, ludicrous amounts of just pure cash. But in general, they will give you crap.
Yep.
You're going to get sapphires, and you're going to like it.
No, you're not going to like it. You're going to cry because you spent real money buying gold, and an indeterminate amount of gold, which turned out to be very little.
Yes. So the average pool out of these ends up being less than what you could actually make by just selling the box.
Yeah.
You buy a bunch of these boxes.
Somebody who be disappointed instead of you.
Yeah. So you buy a bunch of these boxes, you stick them on the auction house, you sell them for gold, and you use that gold to turn back into EMP, and in turn buy more boxes and profit.
The whole thing is just so horrible.
Yep.
Why are they going to do this? I was a fan of that game, you know?
I liked Terra, except the needing an adult, and now this. Why can't we have nice things? I don't know what else we can say about this. I'll just leave it there because it's. I think it speaks for itself.
This is sort of like the apotheosis of loot craze.
It is. You're putting.
This is where we're headed.
You're putting in money, and you're getting a random amount of money back. And there's a chance for it to jackpot, but in general, you're bringing it back at a loss. So yeah, if you were to take the money you made from these gems and turn that money back into EMP, you would have less than when you started. In general. So have fun with that, folks. Don't buy them.
There's very little I can say about this that isn't sort of like laughing or...
Do we have anything else? Do we have some happy news?
I can't think of any.
I can't think of anything. There's going to be something... okay, here we go. Soul Calibur 4. Soul Calibur 6, rather. Ivy looks like Ivy. There we go. Good news.
It's like the balance of the world continues. Like the world continues to spin on its axis because Ivy is still somehow staving off hypothermia while wearing at least each installment.
Yep, but be glad she hasn't moved, because if she went to the opposite hemisphere, her enormous boobage would probably lock the Earth off orbit. So that's Ivy. She is still Ivy. It's actually worrying that they have to announce that Ivy is Ivy.
Well, in a less happy note, I guess, like, there was always a lot of concern that they would cave and remove Ivy because my male gaze.
Yep. There's one other little thing we've put here. What's this shining resonance thingy?
Oh, it's just a franchise that hasn't really gotten a lot of... It's a JRPG franchise. It hasn't really gotten a lot of play over in the West, and they're bringing over another one. And the reason why... Well, it's not that significant. I just put it there because it's a JRPG and for lack of much else to talk about. But there's been a sort of a recent pattern of a JRPG franchise getting brought over, and then all of a sudden people realise that it's interesting, and people start to actually localise these things. So we've seen that with, for instance, the Trail series has really taken off. It's on PC now, and the Neptunia series came over despite being absurd in Japanese, and it's taken off. It's got its own fan base and so on. Like, I think that this is what they are going for now, is this phenomenon of, oh, we'll bring over a title and then we'll actually stop pretending like it's impossible to get any mileage out of the Western player base, which is oftentimes is what kept things from coming over to the West, is that either nobody here wanted to localize it, or nobody in Japan thought it was worth trying to find a localizer.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've moved into this sort of new phase as far as JRPGs are concerned, of it's not a question of what we localize so much as who is going to do it and when. Like, it's a very positive change, and I think that us seeing more and more of these things coming through is a positive thing.
Excellent. All right, I think that's about it for us then. And
Alrighty.
no worry, we'll have to find out what his story is and tell you what's on fire next week.
I just killed this Diablos.
Yay!
My killing shot cut his tail off, but now his tail is underneath his body and I cannot find it.
Oh dear. That's okay.
Oh,
If you carve it, it should pop up.
Enough.
Yeah.
I got close enough to it.
Yeah. So that's good. Alright, so let us get out of here, shall we? Any closing
Right.
comments?